I think we've got a photographer here, so if we could actually get folks to come forward and sit in the front, that would make for better photos. All right. Our next speaker is Aftab Siddiqui. Am I saying that right? All right. He has been actively involved with community organizations for 3 decades in the fields of social justice, environment, and peace. He is the president of the Dallas Peace and Justice Center, and in the past has served as a board member on the Texas Coalition to Abolish the Death Penalty. He's volunteered with the United Way of Tarrant County and was a member of the Cabinet and chaired Families Impact Council. His volunteerism in healthcare and social justice fields led to his time for 2 decades with the Muslim Community Center for Human Services, a nonprofit that provides charitable health and social services to the community at large. I'm very excited to have him join us and give a talk on foreign policy issues.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate the invitation to be able to talk to you all. And it's wonderful to see a new political group, frankly speaking. And before I start, I'm a Democrat, but I do appreciate that people are getting more and more involved in the politics. And I have studied a bit about the Christian Democrats in Europe, and of course there are all kinds of in different countries, but it's probably the first attempt here, so I wish you all luck. Okay, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for inviting Dallas Peace and Justice Center in this convention to talk about peace. I bring good wishes from our board. Dallas Peace and Justice Center is the oldest peace organization in this area, and its activists have worked tirelessly to bring peace and opposed wars since 1980s. Our activists have been in the forefront protesting the wars in Afghanistan, Iraq, Syria, Libya, Yemen, Gaza, and Ukraine. We have actively opposed the sanctions against Cuba, Iraq, Iran, Venezuela, and blockade of Gaza. The forever wars that our country is waging now is now a threat to world peace, planet Earth, and entire civilization. Let me quote a few sentences from a speech given by our late president, John F. Kennedy, on the commencement address at American University, Washington, D.C. on June 10, 1963. I can tell you, when I read that speech, it resonates me so much because of the kind of situation that we are in. So I quote, I have therefore chosen this time and this place to discuss a topic on which ignorance too often abounds and the truth is too rarely perceived. Yet it is the most important topic on earth, world peace. What kind of peace do I mean? What kind of peace do we seek? Not a Pax Americana, enforced on the world by American weapons of war, not the peace of the grave or the security of the slave. I am talking about genuine peace, the kind of peace that makes life on earth worth living, the kind that enables men and nations to grow and to hope and to build a better life for the children, not merely peace for Americans, but peace for all men and women. Not merely peace in our time, but peace for all time. I speak of peace because of the new face of war. Total war makes no sense in an age when great powers can maintain large and relatively invulnerable nuclear forces and refuse to surrender without resort to those forces. It makes no sense in an age when a single nuclear weapon contains almost 10 times the explosive force delivered by all the Allied air forces in the Second World War. It makes no sense in an age when the deadly poisons produced by a nuclear exchange would be carried by wind and water and soil and seed to the far corners of the globe and to generations yet unborn. So let's talk about the cost of war that we are really looking at. And you can really read the entire speech of President Kennedy on the internet. And nearly 20 years after the United States invasion of Afghanistan, the cost of its global war on terror stands at 8 trillion and 900,000 deaths. According to a new report from the Costs of War project at Brown University, the research team's $8 trillion estimate accounts for all direct costs of the country's post 9/11 wars, including the Department of Defense Overseas Contingency Operations funding, State Department war expenditures, and counter-terror war-related costs, including war-related increases to the Pentagon's base budget, care for veterans to date, and the future Department of Homeland Security spending and interest payments on borrowing for these wars. The total includes funds that the Biden administration requested in May 2011. The death toll standing at an estimated 897,000 to 929,000 includes U.S. military members, allied fighters, opposition fighters, civilians, journalists, and humanitarian and workers who were killed as a direct result of war, whether by bombs, bullets, or fire. It does not, the researchers noted, include the many indirect deaths the war on terror has caused by way of disease, displacement, and loss of access to food or clean water. And we have seen the displaced persons really traveling to other countries, far other countries. And many of them, hundreds of them have died in trying to reach for better life. And when the wars do end, the cost of war will continue to rise. The report notes a towering $2.2 trillion of the estimated financial total accounts for future care that has already been set aside for military veterans, the researchers said. And the US and other countries could pay the cost of environmental damage wrought by the wars for generations to come. And as we all know that the people, our soldiers, men and women who died in Iraq and Afghanistan, most of them died because of the IEDs. And the IEDs, and if I remember correctly, in Iraq, 29,000 soldiers were really injured by IEDs, and their injuries were so massive that they will not be able to work ever again. And you know, average age is what, 19, 20? And it is such a sad state of affairs. So we are going to keep on taking care of them, and the cost is $2.2 trillion in the future. What have we truly accomplished in 20 years of post 9/11 wars and at what price? Said Stephanie Saville, co-director of the Cost of War Project and a senior research associate at the Watson Institute. 20 years from now, we will still be reckoning with the high societal costs of the Afghanistan and Iraq wars, long after US forces are gone. Now let's talk about the defense budget. The defense budget has soared to more than $870 billion. We are spending more on defense than the next 10 countries combined. It is unbelievable the amount of money that we are spending, which is totally unproductive. When we have the poverty rate at 11.6%, that makes 37.9 million Americans living in poverty. 582,000 Americans are homeless. 27.5 million Americans do not have any kind of health insurance. And let's remember that out of these 27.5 million, 70% of these people are working and cannot afford insurance. US does not have the money or political will to invest in eliminating poverty, homelessness, or provide health care to all Americans. Yet we have money to increase the defense budget year after year. I don't understand both the parties are so really keen on increasing the defense budget every year. And even there have been times when the Pentagon has asked for a budget and the Congress has approved budget $25 billion more than they asked for. It is unbelievable. And yet we don't have the money for the average Americans. Now let's talk about the current flashpoints. Currently, there are 3 flashpoints due to the aggressive policies that Biden administration is following. Number 1, threat of a nuclear war in Ukraine. If Russia loses the battles in Donbas region, Putin might think of using tactical nuclear weapons. If Putin feels that he is facing internal opposition to his policies, he will be prone to use nuclear weapons. Internal strife in Russia will be extremely dangerous for the world, like we saw in the recent weeks, the issue with the Wagner Group. There is nothing to be happy about. An unstable Russia and unstable government is going to be very dangerous for the world peace. Flashpoint number 2, Israel's threat of attacking Iran to destroy its nuclear capability is another flashpoint. Prime Minister Netanyahu has always shown his desire to do so. He was stopped by President Obama of any misadventure in 2014. However, Biden administration has recently given a green light to his administration, Netanyahu's administration, to proceed if he wants to. Flashpoint number 3, encircling China in South China Sea by military bases in the area, including Philippines, sending nuclear-powered submarines to South Korea and creating military alliances with Australia, Britain, and New Zealand. The US has more than 800 military bases around the globe that threaten the other countries. There are open discussions in media about a coming war with China, God forbid. There is an urgent need for the US to accept the arrival of a multipolar world. Rise of BRICS countries and their efforts to trade in their own currency should not be taken as a threat, Biden administration needs to stop thinking like they are living in the last century. It should welcome the new world order and fight together, along together with other countries to tackle the threat of climate change, which is the biggest danger to our planet and civilization. And thank you very much. I am open to questions. Um, Please feel free to ask any question.
Um, you said the BRICS organization shouldn't be a threat to the American economy. What do you mean by that?
BRICS countries are the emerging superpowers in economic superpowers. So these include Brazil, India, Russia, China, and South Africa. These are basically economic forums. Like we have European Union, we have the BRICS country, and they want to expand trade with each other and with the other countries of the world. And as we all know, the more trade we have amongst the different countries, the better it will be for everyone. So it's not like they are going to take our piece of the cake. No, the economies are expanding. Like we have a 23 trillion economy, and we have been growing, and the rest of the countries are also growing. So there are no threat to the American economy.
How do you recommend handling countries like North Korea that don't follow rational policies for peace and seem to be quite happy with destroying their own people and threatening others?
Well, North Korea is a case where they have been there like that since 1950s. And the good thing is that after the Korean War, we never had any other war, or they weren't attacked. If they want to be isolated, let them be isolated. Yeah, I would really suggest that don't put sanctions on them, because sanctions never hurt the leaders. Sanctions always hurt the people, and the people of North Korea are helpless against a dictator. Like in most of the countries, we have dictatorship. I mean, how many democracies are there? And I'm glad that the number of democracies have increased, but people should not be punished by sanctions just because we don't like their leaders. And on top of that, remember, in 1990s, Bill Clinton was able to talk to the North Korean administration, and they negotiated an agreement where we were providing them with food and some oil and things like that. And they said that they're not going to develop any nuclear weapon. It was when George W. Bush uh, started talking about axis of evil and attacked Iraq, which never had any atomic or nuclear weapons, that the North Koreans thought that, okay, we have seen what happened to Saddam Hussein when he gave up his nuclear program. We see what happened to Gaddafi when he gave up his nuclear program. So the only security is to have a nuclear weapon, and that's their point of view. And if you see that we haven't really attacked them or anything like that, because they do have a nuclear weapon, it's very unfortunate, but that's what the threat to them, what really pushed them towards exploding a nuclear device.
Right, but at this point, since they're still launching test weapons over Japan and such, what do we do now? Do we just ignore them?
We try to talk to them. That's the best way to do. We can't force them not to detonate a nuclear bomb or something like that, and test a nuclear device. I mean, most of the nuclear countries have been they're not testing the devices, but they are increasing their missiles capability, and they are refining their nuclear arsenal. And if you look at United States, President Obama signed $1 trillion financing to upgrade the nuclear arsenal of United States. So, and that is going on, still going on, and we all know that these weapons are not going to be used, hopefully, but an accident can happen. And if countries are not communicating with each other, then accidents can happen, and if it happens, it's going to be terrible for the entire civilization, entire globe. And what we are still, our biggest threat is really the threat of the climate change and its consequences. We really need to focus on that instead of really going after each other. Frankly speaking, it's high time that we understood and realized the situation, the dire situation regarding this global warming thing. So, yes.
In our party, there's been discussions about the US perhaps becoming a neutral country. What's your view on that? I personally don't have a strong opinion on this, but within our own party, there's been discussions, particularly from one member who advocates the United States becoming a neutral country. What's your view on that?
Well, United States is the only superpower in the world, so we can do a lot. When we spend close to $1 trillion on our defense, the other countries are fearful of our military might. And what are we preparing against? So when you talk about being neutral, I think that what you're talking about is becoming more peaceful. Let's focus on diplomacy. The budget for the State Department is a few $1 billion or something like that, and that was cut down by Donald Trump administration, and they really hollowed out the State Department. The thing is that we really need to invest billions of dollars in our diplomacy, and we need to really sit down with the other countries and really work with them on and find solutions for all these issues. And there is no need to threat any country. There's no need to really keep on spending close to $1 trillion in our economy. Yeah, many people will say that this is investment in our economy, and we create jobs. But the thing is that the end result, this is unproductive investment, because we have weapons and thousands of them which we will never use. And So what's the idea of having something which you are never going to use? Better still, keep talking to your neighbors, talk to other countries, and let's have a more peaceful world. And let's stop thinking the way the current Biden administration is thinking, like they are in 1960s or 70s or something like that. Yes, sir.
So, what do you believe would happen if we were to decrease the spending on like our military industrial complex? Like, where do you see the world going after that?
No, I didn't get that question.
So let's say we don't continue to spend trillions of dollars into pumping that into our military industrial complex. Do you feel like the world will still hold the same regard for the things we do within the world?
Absolutely. I can tell you, originally from Pakistan. In 2005, there was a huge earthquake where 80,000 Pakistanis died. And I raised some funds and went there for relief work. And because the earthquake was so massive in a mountainous region, the roads were destroyed and bridges were destroyed. The only way to reach those people who were perched on the mountain tops were through helicopters. And United States did a great job in providing the helicopters. In Pakistan, they used to call them uh, angels of mercy, those helicopters. So just think that what we can achieve. And I do remember during the Obama administration that the epidemic in Africa, what do you call it? So which was a very dangerous epidemic. Ebola, thank you very much. Yeah, Ebola. And the Obama administration flew an entire hospital kind of a thing with the help of the Pentagon, and they set up a hospital there, and they really took care of the people there, and they stopped that disease over there. There was only one case that reached the United States in Dallas. Yeah, I think you might remember. And we were able to do that. If Obama administration hadn't been proactive, then I don't know what would have happened with all these flights and people moving from one place to other. I mean, this is the only time in history that millions of people are really flying and moving from one place to the other. So yes, we can do tons of things, good things.
Well, it's not that we can't do good things. My question was, I guess I should have been more clear. Would the world still not necessarily respect us, but still allow us to engage how we engage worldwide? Like basically how we interfere in other like political atmospheres, how we set up businesses, and how we go and basically put our American footprint in other countries. Would we still be able to do that without that military forefront? I say.
Well, over the last 60, 70 years, we have overthrown 45 governments in the third world. Okay, yeah, we'll have to stop that, frankly speaking. You, if you can't, that's why people keep on saying, why do they hate us? One of the reasons is that we have been going all around the globe toppling governments, Like, look at Iran, 1953, they had a democratic government. We went in and overthrew them, and then we had 40 years of a brutal king, dictatorship, monarchy, who killed thousands and thousands of people. I can tell you, because Iran is next door neighbor to Pakistan, we had Iranian people who had fled the country, and some of them were very good friends of mine, and we were in the same college, and they used to tell me that what goes on in Iran, and it was brutal. And the entire society became so brutalized that when the revolution, the Islamic revolution, as they call it, came in, hundreds and thousands of people were killed. So that is unfortunate, but yes, we will have to stop interfering in other countries. There is always a way to negotiate. Like we have United Nations, 195 countries are there. We have WTO, where we all go and talk about our trade issues and economic issues. We've got so many forums where we can sit together and do a dialogue, and we don't have to whip up a pistol or something like that and force them.
Of course. Yeah, that's amazing. That's great.
Let's thank you very much.
Thank you.